For this, and for all of my discussions of the reading passages on the SAT, be sure to have your official SAT study guide in front of you. We'll be working from the second edition of the College Board's Blue Book, and we'll be looking at practice questions related to all types of reading passages. Hello again. In this lesson, we'll be discussing hypothetical questions from the reading passages on the SAT. As you can see here, hypotheticals account for about 4% of all the questions on the SAT reading section. You can expect to see 3 or 4 of these per SAT test. Hypothetical questions ask you to comment on a situation similar to the ideas in the passage. However, what makes these questions tricky is that the hypotheticals in these questions themselves do not actually show up in the passage. That might seem a little bit confusing, but you'll see what I mean in just a second. To answer hypothetical questions well, find an idea that is similar to those that are discussed in the passage itself. Let's have a look. Here's a sample hypothetical question for you that I made up. Let's say an author of a passage makes the following claim: recent college graduates are always the best job candidates. This would be a sample hypothetical question related to this particular passage. Which of the following hypothetical job applicants would the author believe to be most qualified for a job at his clothing store? A recent high school graduate. B, a young woman who reads many books about clothing. C, the middle-aged former owner of a clothing store. D, a recent college graduate who studied economics. Or E, a teenage fashion model. You've probably guessed it already, but answer D is the only choice that works. Answer D mentions a recent college graduate, and as the author stated, recent college graduates are always the best job candidates. So even though answers B, C, and E might make sense because they mention people with direct experience in the fashion or clothing industries, these answers can't be correct because they don't work with the author's statement that he prefers recent college graduates. Now that we've done that one, let's have a look at some real questions in the official study guide for the SAT. Flip with me to page 523, and the first one we'll have a look at is question number 18. Question 18 asked us this: which of the following, if true, would most directly disprove what scientists originally thought, in line 46? First thing we need to do is go back to line 46, start reading in line 42 or 43, and read all the way up through 48 or 49. In this passage, it states that scientists originally thought that yawning, quote, increases the amount of oxygen in the blood. So the question is asking us to disprove this claim. In order to do so, we need to pick an answer that states that yawning does not improve the flow of oxygen in the blood, or that even when we need a lot of oxygen, we don't yawn more. Let's have a look. I would eliminate answer A because it talks about carbon dioxide rather than oxygen. I would also get rid of answer B. B says yawning does not reduce the need for sleep, though it may make a person feel less tired. This, as you've noticed, has nothing to do with increased flow of oxygen. I would also eliminate answer C. C says because yawning brings more air into the lungs, it can increase the rate at which oxygen is absorbed. Now, you may think this answer looks pretty good, and I've had a lot of students who pick this one. But the problem is this is exactly what the passage says, and the question is asking us to disprove what the passage says. So what's the right answer? We're left with D and E, and the right answer is D. D states that people do not tend to yawn much at high altitudes where oxygen levels in the air are low. This directly contradicts what we read in the passage. The passage states that when we need more oxygen, we yawn because yawning improves the oxygen flow throughout our bodies. And D states that even at high altitudes, when we are very much in need of oxygen, people do not tend to yawn more, and therefore, as the question asked us, it directly disproves what the author states in the passage. Let's have a look at one more. We're on the same page, 523, but now let's look at question number 22. 22 asks us this: which of the following, if true, would most effectively undermine the simple definition in line 72? Now, first of all, undermine means to disprove. A lot of people confuse this word with underline and therefore think that it means to highlight or draw attention to. But undermine is very similar to the question we just saw. We want to disprove what the author says in line 72. Let's have a look back at this simple definition. In the passage, the author states this: the greater your sleep need, or the sleepier you are, the faster you will fall asleep if given the opportunity to do so. Simply put, this simple definition is that if we are more tired, we will fall asleep more quickly. If we want to undermine this idea, we need to say the opposite. Let's get rid of some answers that don't say the opposite. I would get rid of answer A, answer D, and answer E. So we're left with answers B and C, and B is our correct choice because it directly undermines what the author states in the passage. B says, when people are extremely sleepy, they may have difficulty falling asleep. This is in fact completely contradictory to what the author said in the passage, and therefore it does a good job of undermining his or her statements. Thanks for listening to this brief tutorial on hypothetical questions. I'll be back with more on all the other sections of the reading passages shortly. Take care.